In 2018, I married my childhood friend, Mac. This was the 10th year since we had known each other, and I felt he was acting a bit strange. Why was he suddenly speaking so smoothly? Before we got married, we had a marriage contract. I wasn't allowed to disturb him without reason. I couldn't interfere in his personal life. We couldn't make our marriage public. When he finished speaking, his expression was very serious, but there seemed to be a glimmer in his eyes. When he mentioned the last condition, he even emphasized it on purpose. After he finished, Mac crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking at me smugly like a proud young peacock. Understood? Any objections, little potato? We got married only because of his grandfather. I obediently shook my head, no objections. Mac was silent for a moment, dropped his arms, and then asked again, "Are you sure? I know we just got married. If you don't agree, you can tell me directly, and I'll consider." I cut him off, no objections. Mac pursed his lips, silent. After waiting a while without him saying anything, I curiously looked up and saw his face, dark as the bottom of a pot. I asked him, puzzled, "Why do you look so bad? What's wrong?" Mac turned away from my gaze and gritted his teeth. Nothing. Without waiting for my response, he immediately turned and left, not returning that night. I couldn't help but sigh. This person is really moody. The day after I married Mac, rumors about him and the celebrity demeanor suddenly appear on the trending search. On top of that, there was a ring on his left ring finger. What was initially just a dating rumor had now turned into a marriage rumor. When I heard the news, I was sitting in the garden pulling weeds. Linda stormed over. "Ari, have you read the news?" I wiped the dirt off my face and looked up at her. "What news?" Linda stomped her foot angrily. "Your husband. Rumors about your husband and demeanor are all over the place. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, ... me, oh." Linda froze, then immediately flared up. "Oh, what do you mean, oh? That's your husband." "That's your husband?" I scratched my head. "I know he's my husband. So what does his rumor with someone else have to do with me?" Linda grabbed my hand. "Aren't you?" Seeing that she was stepping on my potatoes, I quickly pulled my hand back. "I want to grow potatoes. Don't step on my potatoes." Linda rubbed her forehead. "Potatoes? Really? Is growing potatoes more important than your husband? No wonder Mac calls you little potato." I thought seriously. Seems like it. Linda was speechless, and a potato fell, rolling twice on the ground before coming to rest near my foot. I looked at it, heartbroken. Then Linda, and I looked up to see Mac. He was standing at the main gate, catching his breath, with his tie loosened and a layer of sweat on his forehead. It looked like he had run over here. He came but didn't say anything, just stared at me without blinking, as if he wanted to poke holes in me with his gaze. Sensing the strange atmosphere, Linda stammered, "I have something to do. I'll leave now." Mac ignored her, walked up to me, and said word by word, "The rumors are true." I looked at him. Oh, Mac seemed very angry, the corner of his mouth twitching, furious but smiling. "Is that all you have to say?" "Say something else." I blinked. Could he possibly want me to congratulate him? I thought about it. Then, "I wish you to happiness. For my own safety," I added. "But I won't take care of her during her confinement." Mac took a deep breath, his expression a mix of laughter and tears. He didn't say a word and turned to leave. Aunt Chen hurried over when she heard, "Sifeng, you're home early today. What would you like for dinner?" At first, Mac had walked away, but hearing that, he stopped and turned back. Then, looking at me, he gritted his teeth and said, "Potato stew, mashed potatoes, potato slices, potato soup." He listed out every possible way to cook potatoes. Frightened, I hugged my potatoes tightly. Aunt Chen cheerfully replied, "So, you want potatoes today?" Mac didn't answer Aunt Chen. Seeing my reaction, he snorted coldly, "Joy, I won't clarify the rumors today. If I do, I'm a dog." I didn't understand. Didn't you say the rumors were true? If they're true, why clarify them, Mac? The rumors continued to spread. Duina's team remained vague on Weibo, and the fans were in an uproar. Overnight, everyone seemed to accept the idea of them dating. The next day, Mac had an interview scheduled. My nephew refused to watch Peppa Pig and insisted on watching his interview. I was worried about the potatoes in the garden and couldn't focus on playing with him on the show. Max sat on the sofa, looking cold and distant, his left hand continually touching the ring on his right ring finger. The host looked at the ring on his finger. Mr. Shen, the ring on your finger. Mac interrupted her. How did you know I'm married, host? The host smiled awkwardly. So, the rumors online are true. Mac nodded. That's right. My wife's name is Joy. The host looked surprised. Then Duina. Mac raised an eyebrow. Do you what? Nah what? I only know about vitamins. Recently, my wife is preparing to get pregnant, so she wants to take vitamins. The host froze for a moment, then laughed awkwardly. So, wishing Mr. Shen a lifetime of happiness. At this point, my nephew looked at me smugly. Auntie, aren't you happy? Isn't my uncle so cool? I nodded. Then I thought, is it about to rain? I wonder if the potatoes I planted yesterday will grow. I'm really worried. That afternoon, it didn't rain. My worries didn't come true. I walked lightly into the garden and ran into Mac, who had just returned from work. I stopped in my tracks. Mac's gaze landed on the notebook in my hand, his lips pressing slightly together. I suddenly remembered that he seemed angry when he left yesterday. I wasn't sure if he'd cooled off by now. Not wanting to provoke him, I tried to slip past. Mac was silent for a moment, but unexpectedly, he spoke to me first. Little Potato, are you going to plenary? Asterisk, the male lead accidentally said the wrong name here. Not a typo from me, haha. As soon as he finished speaking, Mac seemed to realize what he had said and looked frustrated. Although I had no idea what he was talking about, I politely replied, yes, that's right. He pressed his lips together, then gave a slight smile and casually asked, did you watch TV today? I shook my head honestly. His voice suddenly rose. You didn't? I looked at him, puzzled. No. I was only sitting nearby while my nephew watched. I didn't actually watch. He adjusted his tone. Then, did you go online? I'd been thinking about potatoes all day. Where would I find the time? I shook my head. Mac was silent, gritting his teeth. Fun. Very good. Little Potato, go play with your little potato friends. Then he kicked the sofa, but apparently too hard, as he grabbed his foot and spun in place on the floor. He seemed like he was sick or something. I shook my head and quickly walked outside. The balcony of Mac's bedroom overlooks the potato patch I planted. When I looked up to wipe my sweat, I could hear him talking on the phone. He didn't know I was below, speaking loudly in an irritated, angry tone. Provoking me is useless. I'm not even as good as her potatoes. Did you hear that, Danny? I'm losing out to her potatoes, and I actually have to be jealous of potatoes. When I make enough money, I'll destroy all the potatoes in the world. No, I'll destroy all the potatoes in the universe. I looked up at him and suddenly said, Mac. Mac's voice halted. I called him again, Mac. Realizing I was there, his phone slipped from his hand, landing right in front of me. He avoided my gaze for a moment, then cautiously peeked over and asked, W what? I gestured toward the patch next to me. These aren't just ordinary potatoes. Mac fell silent, then tentatively asked, are they the Wong way of potato poetry? Me, I scratched my head. If you don't like potatoes, I won't plant them. Mac thought for a moment, then asked, did you hear everything I said? I answered honestly, I heard it all. He looked a bit crazed. So you heard everything, and the only conclusion you came to was that I don't like potatoes. Nothing else. I thought back, well, yes. His eyes lit up. What? You want to exterminate potatoes? Mac didn't even laugh sarcastically. He slammed the door shut, Then, speaking from inside, said, Ari, if I speak to you again, I'll walk backward for you. He was angry again, and this time, it seemed worse than before. He didn't even come down for dinner. After I finished eating, I went back to my room and browsed my phone out of boredom. Just then, a notification popped up. Mac had sent me a message on WeChat. Hey, little potato. I paused, then replied, what? The typing indicator showed for a good 3 or 4 minutes. Then he sent, is it illegal to walk backward and bump into someone? Me, well, it's not illegal, but it's certainly undignified. I didn't reply to him. After waiting a bit and not getting an answer, he came to knock on my door. I opened it, and he stood outside, not entering. Before I could say anything, he began talking like a machine gun. I haven't eaten dinner. Aren't you my wife? How could you let me go without dinner? I'm losing weight. Tomorrow morning, I'll be 10 pounds lighter. Do you treat your husband like this? I pursed my lips. Do you want me to cook for you? Then, looking up at him, I inexplicably added, husband. Upon hearing this, Mac instantly froze, staring blankly at me as his face quickly turned red. I curiously asked him, what's wrong? Before I could finish, he abruptly sat down and buried his face in his elbow. Not knowing what to do, I stood there for a moment, hearing him mumble in a small voice, W, what are you doing? Then it hit me, Mac, are you blushing? His body stiffened, and he suddenly jumped up. Who's blushing? I'd never blush. Saying this, he turned and started to walk away. Weren't you going to eat noodles? I'll go make you noodles. Me, I grabbed his sleeve. Hold on. Mac stared straight ahead, expressionless. What is it? Me, that's the bathroom, Mac. In my memory, Mac was like a jar with the lid tightly shut. He didn't like talking, even less so laughing, and only knew how to study. Grandpa Shen had wondered more than once if his grandson was autistic. But no, I bit my chopsticks, watching as Mac hummed while washing dishes in the kitchen. Remembering the ways he'd changed these last few days, I bit my lip. What went wrong along the way? Was this guy possessed? A shiver ran down my spine, and I suddenly remembered something I wanted to tell him. Oh, right, Mac. I'll be going on a field trip this weekend with my senior, so I might be gone for a week. His dishwashing stopped, and without turning around, he calmly said, okay, go ahead. I nodded, realizing he couldn't see me since his back was turned. After a moment of silence, he asked, which senior? I tilted my head, Jung Duo. But you don't know him. Mac put down the dish, turned to look at me. I don't know him. He didn't attend our wedding, so he doesn't know you're married. I thought back, about to say something, but he cut me off, sighing. It's fine. I just asked casually, really. I don't care. You can go. I agreed politely. All right? The corner of Mac's mouth twitched. Saying nothing, he turned back and scrubbed the dish vigorously. Water splashed everywhere, making a mess of the kitchen. I frowned. How old is he to be making such a mess while washing dishes? I interrupted, Mac, how old are you? With his back to me, he let out a cold HMPH. Don't ask how old I am, my emotions are bursting. Me. After scrubbing the last dish, Mac didn't even look at me as he strutted away. Early the next morning, before I even got up, I heard Mac reciting poetry passionately downstairs. I'll put you in my pocket, but you'll kick me into the abyss. I might sing off-key, but my love will never stray. I love you with all my heart, yet you ignore me. His voice grew louder and louder, and I couldn't take it. I turned over, grabbed my slipper, and threw it downstairs. Mac, shut up already. As expected, his voice fell silent. Satisfied, I slept until the afternoon, even having a dream. In it, Mac was floating midair, scowling as he approached me. Heartless woman, I'm really leaving this time. I didn't understand. Where are you going? He pointed to the distance, a place far, far away. I don't need you anymore. You don't need me anymore. I stared wide-eyed. You're making me a widow, Mac." I lunged toward him. "No, you need to leave your assets to me." But I grabbed only a pillow, so it was just a dream, rubbing my eyes. I got up and left my room. Just outside, I saw Max sitting with perfect posture, utterly engrossed in the TV. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but feel curious. Following his gaze, I noticed he was watching the thorny rose. He even held a notebook and pen, taking notes. Me. There's definitely something wrong with my eyes. I swear. That evening, I had a dinner appointment with my lecturer and senior. Since I overslept, I didn't have much time to prepare. I quickly headed out, only to bump into Mac in the garage. He blocked the car door, his feet seemingly rooted to the ground. Staring at me without blinking, I sighed, "Do you need something?" He shook his head. "No." "Do you have something to say?" "No." "Are you upset?" "No." "Then can I leave now?" "Of course." But he still didn't move. I thought for a moment. "Do you want to come to dinner with my senior and me?" Like a gust of wind, he slipped into the passenger seat. "Yes." As soon as he said yes, he had already buckled his seatbelt, looking at me with a satisfied smile. Then he happily added, "I knew you'd take me along." Honestly, does this guy sound like he's speaking normally? I was a bit worried that he might cause a scene during dinner, so I said, "Mac, later." I thought hard about how to phrase it. "Please behave a little later." He clicked his tongue, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Feeling uneasy, I arrived at the restaurant, where Mike and the lecturer were already waiting. I was about to turn around and give Mac a few more instructions, worried he might overturn the whole table. But when I turned, the scowl on his face was gone, replaced by a calm demeanor and polite smile. Paired with his handsome face, he looked every bit like a refined gentleman. After getting out of the car, he nodded politely to Mike and, with a humble attitude, gently took my hand. The lecturer looked us over with amusement. "I've heard that Nachi Si Don and they Chem make a loving couple. Seeing is truly believing." "Me? Who told you that?" "Why didn't I know?" Mac replied graciously. "I'm simply too attached to her." I apologize if it's embarrassing. As soon as he finished, there was a chorus of laughter. Feeling a bit awkward, I subtly tried to release my hand, but he wouldn't let go. As we moved inside, he whispered through clenched teeth, "If you pull away, I'll make a scene. I really will." Me. Seeing that I didn't respond, he bit his lips lightly. "I'll dance on the table if I have to just to embarrass you." Me. Really? Is he crazy? During dinner, the lecturer was advising Mike and me on what to watch out for on our work trip this weekend. Mac was surprisingly well behaved, sitting upright and merely peeling shrimp for me. After the lecturer finished, another junior student invited Mike to drink. Mike held up a glass of warm water and replied gently, "I don't drink when I'm out." The junior looked over to Mac. Mac chuckled, "I don't drink either." Mike said, "I usually drink water." Mac replied, "I usually drink milk." He paused, then added, "Tea brand milk." Me, Mike laughed awkwardly. "You're really unique." Mac seemed to harbor a certain hostility towards Mike. It was the type of hostility that only I seemed to notice. On the way home, I couldn't resist asking, "Did you know Mike before?" Mac shook his head. "No." Growing more curious, I asked, "Then why are you so hostile towards him?" He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "It's a matter between handsome men." "You wouldn't understand." Me.